Oh, hi, it's your old buddy Zoo, and I found myself with some rare free time last week, so I decided to fire up some GameCube. Nothing special, just kind of winding down, resting at the end of the day, when out of the blue, an achievement appears on the top of my screen. And I sat there for a minute thinking, I want to go to bed, but I'm pretty close to another achievement. Maybe I should push on. Maybe I should fart around a little bit more, see what I can see. Flash forward like an hour and a half later, and I've got a couple of achievements. I'm also very tired. Probably should have gone to bed earlier, but I started thinking, why did I stay awake for a game I've played dozens of times? Why would I do that? It's Retro Achievements. And then I started thinking, this would make a really good video. So I decided to make this video. That makes sense, right? So today we're going to talk about Retro Achievements. We're going to talk about what they are, why they can be an amazing thing for old games, and just to balance things out, I'll give you a couple reasons why they're not all that and a bag of chips, which is what we used to say back when Retro Achievements were just regular achievements in the early 2000s. God, I'm old. Now, like I said in the intro, Retro Achievements on Dolphin isn't new. This isn't breaking news. I'm not telling you about something that just happened last week. It happened like last Thanksgiving, November of 2025. What is kind of new, though, is that Wii games have Retro Achievements, and the Retro Achievements are now active in Dolphin for Android. And that happened, I think the middle of March in 2026? And it's just one more reason to fire up Dolphin and play some games. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, Dolphin is the Wii and GameCube emulator of choice. It's really the only game in town. It's a solid as hell emulator. It's incredibly mature. It's been around for a while. It's incredibly stable, and it runs on a wide variety of systems. If you've got an Odin 3 or a 477M, a Thor, any halfway decent x86 device, or even some older stuff like the Retroid Pocket 4 or the RG 406 line, they will run GameCube games all the way from native resolution to upscale to 1080p to the point where it looks basically like a Switch game. And now while you're playing these games, there's a whole Retro Achievement systems running in the background. The way it works is that there's a Retro Achievement service running, and it watches the memory of your games constantly. It knows when this certain value is tripped, that means you beat a boss without getting hit. When this value is tripped, it means you triggered a certain cutscene, you found a hidden location. All sorts of cool achievement type stuff, and it all runs pretty much effortlessly in the background. It's exactly what you would expect in like a modern console experience, except it's not on a modern console. It's a free, community-driven service on old games. So when I'm playing Wind Waker on my couch or Path of Radiance on my lunch break and that little achievement pops up, it's kind of surreal. It's like a current-gen experience on a game that never had anything like that. It's pretty cool. So let's back up for anyone who's not familiar with Retro Achievements and just explain what they are. Retro Achievements, retroachievements.org if you want to go to the website, is a community-run achievement platform. You make an account, you link your emulator to it, and from that point forward, it tracks every time you play a game. It knows when you encounter one of the achievements, and then it fires off that little pop-up on whatever device you're playing. It lets you know, hey, you found the secret. Good job, 5 points. And you get a little endorphin rush, ooh, I found the secret. And I got 5 points. What do the points get you? Nothing. Just like regular achievements on the Xbox. You just get a score. Scores are neat. The achievements themselves are made by volunteers, just regular people who love a game so much that they will dig into the memory of that game. They find the different addresses that matter, and then they write the logic that says when you do this action, fire off the achievement so Zoo feels happy. Some of these sets are incredibly well thought out, and some of them, not so much. But they were all made by volunteers, by people who care enough about a certain game to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort mapping things out so you can get that little endorphin rush. It's not just achievements either, because there are leaderboards, there's time trials, there's high scores, that sort of stuff. So if you want to know where you rank on Stage X of some random old NES game, it's there. There's a leaderboard. You can say, oh my god, I'm in 8th place. I'm going to obsess about this for the next month until I get to 4th place and feel bad that I couldn't get to number 1. And in terms of what's covered, you start with NES and the old stuff like Genesis, Super Nintendo, Game Gear, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, N64, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, DS, and now GameCube and Wii, and more things will probably be coming soon. RetroArch has had retro achievements baked in for years now, which is where most people encounter it, but it's getting folded into more and more standalone emulators like Dolphin. And I think that drives the continued improvement, the continued addition, and the continued expansion of retro achievements overall. Alright, so let's talk about why retro achievements are good. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not one of these people that's going to waste an entire weekend trying to get to 100%. Good enough is good enough for me. If I beat the game and I get the majority of the achievements, and I got the ones that were, not a huge stretch to get, I'm fine. I'm content with that. I'm not going to spend an inordinate amount of time chasing all 275 magic bananas or something to get one more achievement. I just don't care enough. But I do genuinely like when the achievements are there, and they have made me spend extra time with games that I normally wouldn't have spent extra time with. So let me tell you why I think maybe that's worth something. First off, they give you a very low-pressure reason to revisit an old game. Every one of us has a list. Games we played back in the day but we never finished. Games we started and then wandered away from. Retro achievements don't demand that you do anything differently. They're just there with a little something extra. Something that will give you a little nudge to finish a game that maybe, without that nudge, you just let it sit on your backlog. And that's not necessarily a small thing. So like, when we do Game of the Month, when we pick a game that might be on GameCube, might be on PlayStation 2, one of the versions has achievements, the other one doesn't. I find myself drawn to play the one that has the achievements just to kind of mark my progress as I go through the week or through the rest of the month. It's not because I need the achievement, it's because having them there, I don't know, it adds a little bit of extra texture to the experience. The second reason I like retro achievements is that it's a way to acknowledge things that generally go unnoticed as you play an old game. Think about what it was like to play a really hard game when you were a kid, an NES hard game. There were no stats, there was no tracking. You could beat Mega Man over the course of 4 or 5 hours and tell all your friends, and unless you had a Polaroid camera sitting next to you to get a really poor picture of your CRT TV, there was no proof. They'd believe you, or they'd say, yeah, sure, and your uncle works for Nintendo.
You're full of crap, Zoo.
Retro Achievement changes this. You beat a boss without taking damage, there's an achievement. You go all the way through a room without stepping on a spike, there's an achievement. You beat the game in under 3 hours, guess what? You won't believe it, but there's an achievement for that too. That was serious street cred when you were 10 years old, and now with Retro Achievements, it becomes, internet nerd cred for your random internet friends on Discord. But you can point to it because it's on your profile, because someone designed a little achievement, someone designed a little trophy for that accomplishment. They knew you were going to do it. They had faith in you, or I guess they just tried to fill out the set. But let's just pretend like they had faith in you, trusted viewer. The third reason is that good achievement sets show you things you may have missed. And these always kind of surprise me, especially as I play games that I've played a bunch of times, and I'm looking through the achievement list, and I go, what is that? You have to do what? I can go there? I played this game for the last 20 years. I never even heard of that. It's cool. It's kind of a serendipitous way of discovering things. As an example, Wind Waker, especially the beginning of Wind Waker, I don't know if you know this, but as a retro handhelds, retro game YouTube person, you are contractually obligated to play the opening scene of Wind Waker about 20 times a year. And of course, I do that. But as I was playing Wind Waker with the achievements on, the very first achievement, it hints that your grandma has something hidden in her house. And I said, she what? So I went online, I did some Googling, and I found out that if you crawl under her deck and go through a tunnel, underneath your poor grandma's basement is a big treasure chest full of 100 Zelda bucks. It's her entire life savings. And you can steal it from her, literally from right underneath her nose while she's upstairs making your green Link clothes. And you know what happens when you steal $100 from your grandma? You get an achievement. And that's something I never would have known about unless I was looking at the achievement set, and that's pretty cool. And then the fourth reason that retro achievements are pretty cool is that sometimes the community will find something obscure, something weird, something niche, and they pour their hearts into it. They make a beautiful set of achievements for a game that maybe only 100 people in the West are ever going to play. And something about that, I don't know, it's beautiful to me. Case in point, we're doing Star Ocean Blue Sphere as one of our Game of the Month games this month. This is a Japanese-only Game Boy Color game. Came out at the very end of the lifespan of the Game Boy Color. And for the longest time, it had a very rough English translation. There were next to zero guides online. And of course, there were no achievements. I played it a couple years ago when I was going through some crap in my personal life. And I was really looking for something to immerse myself in, to lose my conscious mind in and just get into a niche, obscure Japanese video game. And by God, Blue Sphere was it. But now I have to play it again, and I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't super looking forward to it until I discovered that at some point in between 2022 and now, there's been retro achievements added. And by God, I have a reason to play the game again. It's interesting again. It's an old experience I didn't necessarily want to revisit, and now I find myself excited to try to find these new achievements and maybe learn even more things about this super niche and obscure game. And again, that's kind of amazing. That's kind of beautiful. All right, so I told you 4 reasons why I think retro achievements are cool. Let's balance it out. I'll give you 4 reasons why they're not so cool sometimes. Problem 1 is they have a way of messing up your very first playthrough of a game. If you're playing a game for the first time, you're going in blind and you have your retro achievement turned on, and all of a sudden, 20 minutes into the game, something pops up and it says, hey, missable achievement. There's a pretty good chance you're going to be like, missable? I don't want to miss that. And you might be tempted to open up a guide, and you might ruin your blind playthrough. And you can never go back and play a game for the first time again. And so sometimes, for some people, there's something sacred about that first blind playthrough. And if you feel tempted to open a guide, it could ruin the experience. And especially in your first playthrough, if you have a guide, a lot of times you're not really playing the game anymore so much as you're playing a checklist. You're inadvertently reading ahead. You're spoiling things. Even those no spoiler bare bones guides, eventually it's going to say like, hey, make sure you take all the equipment off of that sidekick character. And you're going to go, why do I have to take the equipment off? Is he going to die? Yeah, he's going to die. Or he's going to start a business because that's what they do in Lunar. But it's going to spoil the game for you. And I think retro achievements, especially as they're trying to tell you things, for that first time experience, it might ruin it. It might taint it. And honestly, it might be worth it to turn off retro achievements if you want to keep that blind, fresh experience intact. Problem 2, like I alluded to earlier, the set quality is just all over the place. Because this is entirely community built and there's no innate central quality control, you could have a brilliant, well-designed set for this game, and then the next game you play, it just says, hey, find 200 of these things. Here's a point. There's no effort into it. The good ones feel like they were designed by someone who loves the game, and the bad ones feel like they were designed by someone who's just trying to do a bunch of achievement sets for whatever personal reason they have. That inconsistency is unfortunately the price you pay for an all-volunteer model. Some games have amazing sets. Some games have turds, and some games have no sets at all. Problem 3 is hardcore mode. Now, Retro Achievements naturally has a hardcore mode because, like I mentioned earlier, there are time trials, there are leaderboards, and it wouldn't make any sense to keep track of who's the best if you could just save state your way around, if you could rewind and fast forward. So the hardcore mode eliminates all that. You cannot do hardcore achievements if you want to do save states, if you want to rewind, if you want to do a bunch of other stuff. It just disables them. But for some games, especially the old NES hard games that were brutally difficult, maybe you want rewind. Maybe you need save states to actually beat the game. And if you're running that game in hardcore mode, it can turn a chill evening into an extremely frustrating weekend experience where you yell at your wife, maybe you kick at the dog, and everyone's mad at you, all because of hardcore mode. It's entirely optional. Nobody's making you turn it on. I very rarely run it with hardcore mode on, but it's a thing, and a lot of times, especially when you're starting for the first time, it defaults to on. And so your first couple experiences with retro achievements, you might be wondering, why the hell do people like this? And problem 4 is it causes internet anxiety. Retro achievements require an internet connection. And now, if you're in your house, no big deal. But if you're using your retro handheld as an actual portable gaming device, chances are you might not always be in your house. You might be on a work trip. You might be at your office. You might be on a plane, in a train, in an automobile. You might be somewhere where there's no regular internet. You either need to find and connect to a local Wi-Fi that's either open or maybe you know the password for it. But that runs a risk because maybe it's a monitored Wi-Fi and they have RetroAchievements blocked because they don't want people playing games. Or you could always fire up your phone and enable your Wi-Fi hotspot, except maybe that costs extra. Maybe you don't have that enabled by default. Maybe it's just a bunch of extra steps you don't want to deal with. You can also start a game while connected to the internet and then wander away from that Wi-Fi signal. The emulator will keep trying to sync, it'll keep trying to connect, and eventually, as long as your handheld doesn't run out of power or the emulator crashes, when you get back onto a stable Wi-Fi, it'll populate all of those achievements you missed during the day. But keep in mind, if your emulator or RetroArch does crash, or your device powers down, you're out of luck. All those achievements, they're gone. Now, this isn't always a problem. It really just crops up when you're outside of your normal routine. But if you're someone that just wants to pick up the handheld and start playing and seeing those achievements fire, it is going to be a couple extra steps if you're away from home base. Well, Gary, the clock on the wall says it's time for What Did We Learn? And we learned that retro achievements are a super fun way to breathe some new life into old games. We learned that some sets are works of arts and other sets stink like farts. I'm not going to pretend I'm over here chasing 100% completions on all my games, and I'm pretty sure that most of you viewers don't feel the same way either. What I will tell you is that when they're there, I like them. I'll spend a few extra minutes on something if I can see I'm close to getting it done. I do notice a little when a game I'm enjoying doesn't have a set yet, and I have gone back to games specifically because there was a new set waiting for me. Games I might not have touched a second time otherwise. The GameCube and Wii side of this is particularly exciting to me right now, because those games have never had any of this. Wind Waker, Metroid Prime, Super Mario Sunshine, F-Zero, Pimkin, none of them shipped with achievements. That was something that started with the Xbox 360. And now there's a whole layer of engagement sitting on top of these games that wasn't there before. And I guess in the end we learned that RetroAchievements has been quietly doing something that the game industry really couldn't, giving 30-year-old games a reason to be replayed and replayed more carefully with an eye towards exploration. Go make an account and see if it makes you stay a little bit longer in a game you might already love. If this video was something you love, remember to like and subscribe and all that jazz. Ring the bell, give a thumbs up, leave a comment, do all that stuff. Apparently there's a new hype feature on YouTube, so get hyped to hype the video, I guess. You know what to do. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.